Yuki Tsunoda had a really bad weekend in Imola, and after his huge crash during practice, the cost to fix his RB21 car has gotten really expensive, obviously with lots of pressure on the Japanese driver ever since he got into that car. These kinds of bad weekends don't help him at all. And now that Verstappen is fighting for the championship again, might the Red Bull team decide to switch drivers again pretty soon? And if they do, who would be the best person to replace Yuki? There's no doubt about it. Yuki caused Red Bull a lot of expensive damage during the Imola Grand Prix, and even though his 10th place finish kind of made up for his practice crash, we can't forget that it put Red Bull in a really tough spot with how poorly the car was performing. After the big crash, the team had to put in a completely new car frame, using parts that were different from what they normally use. Since this breaks the rules about keeping the same car parts, Tsunoda had to start the race from the pit lane. He got a new engine, turbocharger, and all the electrical parts too, which are all part of what he's allowed to use for the whole season. Helmut Marko has already said that the team is in a really tough situation after the crash in Imola, and even though everyone is happy that Tsunoda came out of the crash without getting hurt at all, now the team has to deal with what happens next. Talking more about how tough things are for Red Bull right now, Marko said, "Thank God nothing happened to Tsunoda personally. It's a huge problem for us because it's now 3 races in a row. Monaco especially is not very forgiving if you make a mistake there, and we're running really low on spare parts because of this. You have to give Tsunoda confidence and support, and we will do that." I know what you're probably thinking. Thank God the driver is okay. And that's what we're thinking about too. If this crash had happened a few years ago or before they added the Halo safety device, we're not sure if Yuki would have walked away from this, so his eyes. But now that everything has calmed down, we have some repair bills to look at, and they're definitely not going to help the team bring more improvements for Verstappen. The season is nowhere near finished. The Dutch driver took away 10 points from Piastri's lead and 7 from Norris, who was in 2nd place. So, the last thing he needs right now is to be held back by a big bill when it comes to making his car better. This puts a lot of pressure on Tsunoda's shoulders, too. And when you're under pressure, 2 things can happen. You either become really strong like a diamond, or you completely fall apart. And so far, it looks like the second thing is happening to Tsunoda after the crash in Jeddah. The one in Imola doesn't look good for his future with his team, and he knows that better than anyone else on the track. That's why there's worry that they might replace him for the 3rd time in the middle of a season. We already knew that Red Bull had to take a lot of money from their 2026 spending limit, and when you waste a big part of that money on fixing cars instead of making them better, it doesn't help at all. Even with Alpine, we've seen that the job of the second driver is to score points, don't crash the car, and don't cause us more problems than we already have. And that seems to be what's happening with Tsunoda as well. However, the young Japanese driver hasn't really stuck to doing his job right. And the pressure keeps getting worse with drivers like Hajar and especially Lindblad already getting ready to take his place. When talking about the crash and how it was mainly his fault, Tsunoda said, "Just really stupid of me, pushing too hard when I didn't need to. We had made a lot of changes to the car, pushing that hard without understanding the car well enough. Just very unnecessary pushing that hard from so early in the session." The race itself didn't make the Formula One experts forget about it either, with Jacques Villeneuve being the first one to talk about how pressure is now going to get worse for Tsunoda. And this isn't just because of his questionable driving, but because of the young talented drivers that Red Bull wants to try out. We've seen how good Hajar was throughout the entire race, and he still managed to finish ahead of Tsunoda, scoring 2 important points for the team. Yes, the safety car situations did their own thing, but in the end you just have to be in the right place to make the most of it. Like this, Tsunoda could show Red Bull's weakness even more in the team championship if we think about the fact that Ferrari and Mercedes haven't shown their best yet with the improvements coming up. Talking more about this, Villeneuve said, "What a crazy practice session on Saturday. 2 crashes, 2 big crashes, and we're not used to seeing that. And does it mean that the extremely competitive and impressive Hajar this year will replace Tsunoda soon? If we look at the race, Hajar finished exactly where he started at 9th place, and if it wasn't for the unlucky series of events with that safety car, he was going to score more points, but it's exactly that safety car that let Tsunoda be in the fight for points. So even though the impressive drive from the pit lane to 10th place is something to notice, it's not exactly the real picture of how he's been doing so far. Hajar is doing exactly what Tsunoda has been doing in the sister team of Red Bull to prove he's worth it, and to make things even better for his case. The French driver has been doing better than Lawson as well. After a terrible start to the season, Hajar got faster pretty quickly, and whether we like it or not, he definitely has what it takes to just go for it out there and score points when it really matters. Because of him, Racing Bulls can hope for a different result in the team championship, one that could give the team tens of millions of dollars. Yes, we do know that Marko said Tsunoda's seat should be safe until the end of the season, but crashes like this and performances where he's far away from Verstappen and can't protect him now when he needs it the most don't help at all. Don't, for example, He was given the job to defend against Piastri as hard as he could, and even though it wasn't easy because the Red Bull driver was on much older tires, we know for sure that Perez would have given the McLaren driver a much harder time. This doesn't really matter in the end, but after all, it shows what Tsunoda can do when under pressure. And while I'm not directly blaming him for not fighting Piastri in a more aggressive way, the fight was just very easy and not something that the second Red Bull driver should be doing as part of his job. To make things worse for him, Marco already talked about how Hajar has been the surprise of the season, and when talking about it more, the experienced Austrian praised how much better the French driver got throughout the 2025 season, adding more Hajar is the surprise of this first part of the World Championship. The young Paris driver didn't know most of the racetracks, but was always fast right from the start and made very few mistakes. Apart from the mistake in Australia, Isak does in the race what many Formula One rookies have trouble with. He consistently drives good lap times, while taking care of his tires very well. He does all of this pretty calmly. The future for Red Bull is very hard to predict, even with Verstappen being a big question mark. But there's one thing that they know for sure. They're going to bring Lindblad to Formula One sooner rather than later. 3 drivers doesn't fit into 2 seats. And even though most people think we're seeing the last of Lawson right now, there's a situation where the New Zealand driver could save his seat by taking his Japanese teammate's place. For example, if Yuki's crashes continue, then Hajar could be moved up to Red Bull, while Lindblad is going to get the seat in Racing Bulls. It sounds like a crazy idea, but from this point of view, the last thing that the Austrian team needs right now is a problem in the form of crashes and bad results. In a situation like this, Red Bull would be smart to give chances to drivers that haven't proven themselves yet. So, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to bring back Yuki to the sister team after spending 5 years there. Also, we have to mention the relationship with Honda. As much as Yuki says it's not true, it's clear as day that the only reason he races in Formula One right now is because of the Honda Academy and their working relationship with Red Bull. Let's not forget that Tsunoda's performance in Jeddah was questionable as well. Even though he didn't get as much chance to prove himself because of the first lap crash with Gasly, it left Red Bull in a bad spot for points. It was another crash and another repair bill that they had to worry about. And even though the crash wasn't nearly as bad as the one in Imola, it's a big reason why his future in Formula One is uncertain. With all of this in mind, do you think that Tsunoda's future in Red Bull is in big trouble? And more importantly, do you think the Austrian team should think about a replacement sooner rather than later? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now. Can make mistakes. Please double check responses. Sonnet 4.